Hey, goddess, welcome back. It's Andrea with You Are Mind, Body, Soul. I hope that you are doing well, taking care of yourself. Today, we are going to talk about a really exciting topic, which is create your own lane and buck the trend. I got my silk press going. This is like the first time I've had my hair straightened in forever. So I have an afro. I cut my hair like a year ago. Bucking the trend. I had a little buzz cut and I've let it grow out. So this is 1 year's worth of growth. And I'm just really excited to be here with you today to talk about this. So I have my notes here as usual. And just so you guys know, I don't script these conversations. I just make little notes and I try to hit these points. And it's really my goal to make it feel like a flow and more of a conversation. So if at any point, any of these messages are vibrating with you, you're feeling what I'm saying, please feel free to comment below. Like, I want to know who you are. I want to continue to be inspired by you being inspired by me and just develop a beautiful community here. And also, please go ahead, like and subscribe and share so that other goddesses can get this information too. So, how to create your own lane and buck the trend. Nowadays, in this world, especially with the advent of technology, information is so easily accessible, right? We always have the ability to just pick up our phone and find the answer to any question. And it is things like this that influence our personality, influences how we conduct ourselves in lives, and it influences the decisions that we make in our lives. So when it comes to creating your own lane in life, it is about being authentic. And if you think about it, the most authentic human beings are children. Children do not care about your feelings. They are going to tell you exactly how they feel. They're going to tell you what their opinions are. Like, they are not concerned about your feelings. Children are so authentic. And why is this? It's because they live in their own world. The soul of a child is so advanced and it's so fresh that they are able to really be connected with themselves and to just allow the world to slowly begin to influence them. The first 7 years of childhood development in developmental psychology is just the child being a sponge and just absorbing all of this information. And so they are closest to their soul signature, their soul, who they are without the filter of their family when they are young. So if you want to think about how you can buck the trends, create your own narrative in life, and be your most authentic self, tune in to your inner child. And when I'm doing coaching, I really love to do inner child work because oftentimes when we grow up as adults, the childlike innocence that we have is tainted by, it could be traumas that we have in life. It could be the paths that we went on, that we took those paths because we thought that that was what we were supposed to do. I can think about how I actually thought that, becoming a doctor was for me until I actually got into the medical system. I did the pre-med magnet in high school. I was a pre-med student in college. I worked in the hospital in emergency medicine for 4 or 5 years. Like, I was invested in this. And a part of that investment was because my soul told me that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to do health and wellness. And then another part of the whole doctor identity was because of what my family told me I should do. And I really wanted to satisfy and I wanted to please them. But there came a point where I had to tap into my individuality, my authenticity, and really check in with myself to see if that was really for me. And we'll talk about that later on, right? So when you are a kid or when you tap into your inner child is going to direct you to emotionally where you are going to be most satisfied and where you are going to be most fulfilled. Whenever I have questions, especially during the time where I was doing a lot of my healing and my pain and my trauma was like very surface, I would just tap into my inner little girl and ask her for guidance. Because as a child, for me personally, I went through a lot of abuse, and I've shared this in other videos. You know, I went through a lot of abuse, and that really, really dimmed my light. Children are so bright and so luminescent. And I want you to think about when you were a kid and you had the brightness of innocence and you didn't feel weighed down by all of these different things that were happening in life as you started to process and program yourself to survive in life. And a large part of like healing growth that you can do either with a counselor. Well, if you have psychological issues or like mental health issues, or like you really feel like you're struggling, I would always advise to seek a mental health coach. And if you feel pretty solid mentally and you're really just trying to go to the next level, a life coach is really good for that, or some kind of self-educational process. So as we begin to grow up, we start to assume these identities and we start to wear them like clothes. And we have identities such as religion, we have the culture that we are raised up in, we have our friend group that we want to identify with, we have our race, we have our families and we start to identify with these, which means that it becomes a part of our ego mind, and how we kind of align ourselves, right? And this is something that happens over a slow period of time. And in human psychology, it is a natural response for us to want to make ourselves fit. We want to fit in. But the trouble with wanting to fit in is because when you start to wear all of these different clothes and you start to wear them as an identity, oftentimes we lose track of who we really are. And so it's really important for us to be aware of what we choose to allow to influence us. One of the game changers for me was when I heard the statement that it's something to the effect of you are most likely to be like your closest 5 friends. I don't know if you've ever heard that statement, but this is something that I heard a long time ago. So you are most likely to end up or to be like the top 5 people that you surround yourself with. So take a moment and think about who are the top 5 influences, people in your life. Like, who do you surround yourself with the most? And chances are that your life path is going to look similar to theirs. So hopefully you got some good people around you that inspire you to level up regularly. And you are welcome to include me into your top 5 if you like my videos and you like my content. My hopes is to be here as a guide and as a virtual friend. So think about that. Like, does your friend group need an upgrade? I personally like to be around people that are in a higher position than me in life, or what I perceive to be a higher position, people that I can learn from. You know, I recommend that you keep yourself surrounded by people that you can learn from, people that are challenging you to get outside of your comfort zone and to grow, and people that are encouraging you to be your authentic self. So you want to surround yourself with people that actually listen when you speak and that have a positive, authentic, honest contribution to your life path and how you feel. And this is a great way to determine whether or not your friend group, your 5 closest influences needs an upgrade or not. Just be very mindful of that, because again, the identity, which is more of an ego mind program, is going to be shaped indirectly by these people, whether or not you see them every day or whether or not you see them once in a while. If you are thinking about these people, if you are watching these people on social media, if these people are reaching out to you, any kind of interaction, it is going to affect you. Your resonant fields are going to affect one another. So just be mindful of that. So when it comes to being authentic and bucking the trends, bucking the trend and we're not bucking the trend just for the point of just creating chaos, rebellion, and revolution. Bucking the trend comes from when you find yourself in a position where you are being called to introduce something new into an environment where things have kind of always been the same. The society that we live on functions off of trends. There is always some kind of new trend every time you turn on TikTok, which is why I don't have TikTok, not yet. Every time you turn on your TV, there's always a new trend that we're being programmed with, that they're telling you to do this and to do that. But the important thing in life is tapping into your authenticity and being able to allow yourself to shine from within, just like you did when you were a child, before you started to wear judgment like a cloak, before you started to doubt yourself because of other people's judgment, before you started to define yourself in limiting ways, you were shining. And we want to allow ourselves to be able to shine like that, which means that there has to be an ego death oftentimes, okay? We as advanced beings, meaning that we have conscious awareness of the way in which we choose our lives, we always have a choice in the way that we want to live. We're not just on autopilot. The choice to be in intentional spaces with yourself and with your life path is always up to you, okay? And we want to be able to tap into our soul's identity when we are looking to be authentic and when we are looking to create our own lane, okay? So your soul signature, how can you tap into your soul signature and your soul's voice? So I will give you a story. So like I told you, I was raised, in an environment where it was important to achieve, okay? And I went on this pre-med path. I thought I was going to be a doctor. So there was the achievement aspect, and then there was the actual aspect of like helping people and improving their lives. So once I graduated from college, I started to prepare for the MCAT, which I took, and I did my medical school applications. And as I was working in emergency medicine, I started to fall out of love with the way that the healthcare system worked. I saw that people were coming in with the same issues to treat illnesses, like repetitively the same thing. I saw that the medications were only treating the symptoms, that they weren't getting to the actual root of the problem. And I began to become disillusioned with this system that I had wrapped my identity in. Everything that I was doing up until that point was so that I could get into medical school and wear the hat, the identity of being a doctor, right? And I just fell out of love with this system. And I could not bring myself to go through with going into medicine. And when this happened, when I had this realization, I remember it was like my world was shattering around me because I didn't know anything else as far as what my money would look like in the future, what my lifestyle would look like. Like everything was wrapped up in this identity. And it was like, it was so intense. So what I call this is the dark night of the soul. My ego which had created this identity, had to die. That particular identity and how I wrapped my ego into that identity, how my ego created that identity for me, had to die. I had to no longer consider myself as a pre-med student, and my ego had to die. And this looked like a lot of purging, a lot of like episodes of panic. It looked like, I was checked out. I just had to go through all of those processes. And fortunately, I had my soul's wisdom from always being an explorer of myself, exploring my inner divine feminine, which I didn't call it that at the time, but I was always an explorer of myself. I was always questioning things, doing research on different things. And I had my spirituality to lean on. And I also, surprisingly, I had my sexual energy to lean on. So my self-discovery and the curiosity that I had about my sexual creative energy that was actually influenced deeply by my spiritual life that I had was actually my saving grace, because I was even close to like suicide at that point, because I had anxiety and depression, and no wonder I had all of these things. I was wrapped up in this identity and this process that ultimately didn't work for me. So the ego's death is when you start to awaken. Your soul starts to awaken to the blueprint that it actually came here to operate in. Your operating system, spiritual operating system, basically comes online, and you realize that on the surface level, in the 3D reality, which is what we look at when we wake up, and we are being influenced by all of these different forms of information in the form of people and technology. When you wake up and you realize that there is a dissonance, there's a disconnection, that this reality that you live in no longer fits with how your soul feels within that frame. Okay. And so when this happens, it's like a tectonic shift, is a great way to describe it. So we have levels. There's the superficial of the earth, which is how we wake up, we show up, we go to work, we converse with our friends, the community in which we identify with, the habits that we identify with. And then there are the tectonic plates underneath the earth, which is deeper than that. You can't see it, which then leads you to the core, which is where your soul is. And when you have that deep level spiritual shift, I hope this is making sense. And please comment if you are feeling this message. You have that deeper shift, right? And so what happens when tectonic plates start to shift on one another? That's when you have volcanoes, right? This is how volcanoes are created in this way. This is how new land masses are created. This is how like tsunamis are created, because Mother Earth herself is shifting. So if you can see and start to just kind of be aware on a deeper level of how you're showing up on the surface of your life versus what your soul is calling you to do, you'll be aware when this shift starts to happen as far as what you are supposed to be doing in order to be in alignment with your soul. So the dark night of the soul is when you have the ego death, and it is like these tectonic plates shifting in order to erupt and to release this energy in the form of letting go of the old identity, that release, that eruption, that big flow, and to allow the space to open up for the new. Okay. And, the dark night of the soul and ego deaths, the wiser you become and the more open you become to change in your personal evolution, you begin to realize that ego deaths can happen over and over and over again. Now, when I was earlier on my soul's growth, my soul's path, my ego deaths used to happen more often, and they used to be more intense. And now I'm at a point where I would say that I don't necessarily have like major ego deaths. It's more like I actually kill off old versions of myself, if that makes sense. I know it sounds like kind of brutal, but like once you reach a certain maturity level, you realize like when new pathways start to open, when I start to get new hits of information, when I start to recognize new things in this reality, because I am always discovering and I'm always exploring and learning, I can then say, okay, that version of Andrea no longer works for what I see in my future, what my soul sees in my future for myself, and I can let her go. And I have a whole process for that, like a very specific process. And I'm doing this in order to get myself at every level. And it's like every time that I do this, my soul emerges more and more. Okay. And I create my own lane, or you can say that I create like a new version of my own personal world. Okay. Because at the end of the day, this is your life. Okay. Every day you wake up and you see this reality through your own eyes. Okay. Make sure that you're seeing your reality through your own eyes, not the eyes of what people told you to expect to see. Be careful about expectations, especially when other people are telling you what to expect. You never want to allow yourself to like absorb other people's perspectives or expectations, especially if their life path does not look like what you want your life path to be like. You want to be very careful about that. Make sure that your soul is in alignment with what you expect. And it should always be what you expect, because it is your world and you're looking at it through your eyes. And honestly, the only way to make sure and to guarantee that you are perceiving life through your own personal reality is by having a relationship with yourself, a deep relationship with yourself, a soul level relationship with yourself that is deeper than your ego. So you always want to be asking yourself deeper questions about why your reality is reflecting back to you in the way that it is, which is one of my favorite journal prompts that I learned from one of my mentors a while ago. It is, how is my reality a reflection of me? How is it responding to me? I like to ask myself this question on most days, every day. Now it's just like this little mindful thing that I have, okay? Because you are your reality. The energy in which you create, the vibration in which you create and hold down. And you can look back at my older video for this. I'll probably create another video because frequency and vibration is just so important. But you can always look at your frequency and your vibration and your internal processes, and that will tell you exactly why your reality is showing up in the way in which it is. Taking responsibility for what you have going on the inside before you actually expect anything on the outside to change. So have a relationship with yourself. The best way to do this is to journal, sitting down, getting intimate with yourself, sitting in that frame of mind with yourself, asking those questions, getting crystal clear. You can ask yourself the same question every day. It can be a walking meditation. Okay, maybe try meditating, try some kind of practice where you're actually getting mindful and you're sitting with yourself and you are getting clear with your authentic essence. And then once you realize, once you start to awaken, and once your soul starts to emerge, you will naturally start to buck trends, because we were meant to create. We were meant to create authentically. We were meant to develop a world that was for us. This world was not created for us. We have to create the world in which we want to live in according to our divine purpose our birthrights and our most authentic essence. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. It has been a pleasure. I will see you in the next one. One love. Mwah.